The first time that I found myself on stage with a synthesizer in my hand, I was so nervous. My hands were so sweaty. I couldn't even touch any knobs and I couldn't even play stuff. I played as a DJ as well. First time I played a vinyl record, I was so nervous I had to physically throw the needle into the record and return back to the first beat. That was how nervous I was. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, you've come to the right spot. Welcome. Welcome to this webinar. Learn to Play Live. I'm Analog Kitchen, and let's get into it. I've got some talent from around the world. We're actually going to take a tour around the world with some specialists, and they are dons in their own mind. I'm very happy to host them. And this is the first time going live on this YouTube channel, so everybody in the chat, thank you for being here. Don't hesitate to drop the questions. We will get into them. So let me first start by giving you a few things that I think are very important if you ever are thinking of playing live. Now, I do believe that it's to do with simplicity in the end of the day. I do believe that you have to narrow stuff down. You have to really come in with a plan, and it might look daunting sometimes, but it really isn't. You're going to see it. Because my friends from all around the world have their own way of doing stuff, but we're going to get into that. So, it's easy to think of the alphabet. It's got 26 letters, but you don't have to remember them all. 3 are more important, A, B, and C, and that's easy. So keep stuff simple. We're going to get into that. Let's go over what we're going to do in this webinar, shall we? I have got something prepared for you. The little presentation. Now, let's go to the first slide. From bedroom to live stage. Now, I know it's a very dramatic title, but in the end of the day, we've all been there. We've all been there. We've all been tinkering with, okay, this is a perfect loop, and I've got these things that are really working for me. But if you want to make it into a song, how is that going to work out? I've also been in a situation where I made the greatest loops ever. Unfortunately, when I started to turn it into a song, I kind of lost the mojo. So I've overcome that, and that's why I think you're not alone, and we're actually going to get into that as well. So this is what we're going to do for the course of 2, maybe 2.5 hours, depending on the questions. Okay, I'm going to get into the electronic future of artists. This is something that I've been thinking about. Then I will tell you a little bit about myself. I will introduce our esteemed speakers. Of course, there's a presentation. I will tell you something about our Learn to Play Live course, and there is a way of connecting with us. That's what we're going to get into today. Now, the electronic future of artists. I've got a few statements that might be considered as bold, but I do think that that is exactly where we are right now. DJing has become generic and predictable. Now, I'm also DJing myself, so being a DJ for a long time, I see how this music industry has changed, how DJing has become something of, in certain aspects, sometimes marketed or, about more about the looks and the money than it is about the craft. And in that sense, clubbing has become also more expensive. So the crowd on the floor, you have to pay an expensive ticket, then get to a club where the DJ that's doing a lot of marketing and not so much is focusing on the art. Then the public is demanding more originality, which they should, I think. And with AI coming up, a lot of artists are surfacing, or a lot of people are calling themselves artists. It is happening. It's nothing that you can stop. I don't think we have to stop it, but there's a calling for more authenticity, and that's exactly why LearnToPlay.Live is here. I've been DJing for such a long time, but I do think that I've got so much more to give at this point in my life. I think that I really feel like, okay, what can I give back? What can I share? What can I do, actually? And that's why we're here. So when you enroll in LearnToPlay.Live, what is it? These are hard guarantees, actually. So after 32 weeks, you will be able to play 20 to 30 minutes live convincingly in a performance set performed by you. You will have a recording of your live set which is ready to share. There's an option to release a track on vinyl. The top 3 students of this year will actually get a record deal that we can release on vinyl. You will get help with a tailored, customized gig-ready DAWless or hybrid rig. So, you get confidence to play live because it's best to learn from people's mistakes. Achievements are good, but mistakes are sometimes better to learn. Solo, with bands, DJs, or vocalists. I hear a lot of people that struggle how to play with a DJ or with a vocalist or with a band. That's there. Performances as one of our Kitchen Club events. We do events all over the world, and of course, our top 3 students might have a shot at playing there. Yeah. So we got discount with our brand partners. Might you be interested in expanding? We all suffer from gear acquisition syndrome, so we can help with that. And of course, unique performance techniques. That's what we do. Now, who am I? For those of you that don't know who I am, I will not say I am Analog Kitchen or I'm Lucien Ford, but what I will tell you is my journey from Lucien Ford to Analog Kitchen. At some point, I felt that my brand was something that a lot of people knew, and I didn't really have a chance to reinvent myself for the so many times, so I thought, okay, listen, where am I? So I did Quadrophonia, Funk Function and Dutch Liquid. Those were 2 tracks that really went high into the global underground scene in England with DJs like Al Crocs and Sasha and John Dickweed and them a lot playing my music. I have been touring all over the world as a DJ producer. That was the past. Now the present is I'm still DJing and producing. For some reason I have the illustrious title of Synthfluencer stuck to my name. So I'm also YouTubing. I will develop curriculum, which is what I'm also doing for Learn-to-Play-Live, and we do the Kitchen Club events. Where are we going? We are going still in the DJ production vibe. We are going to develop LearnToPlay.Live not so much only as an educational platform, but more as a community-driven education platform, if you will. So that's what we are doing. And I told you we are going in a trip around the world. So we will be going to Melbourne tonight, we will be going to Denver, we will be going to Modena in Italy, we'll be going to Split in Croatia, would you believe? And we're gonna end up in Weidenes, that's somewhere in Holland. I dare you to put it in the chat if you know how to spell it. But yeah, I've got Sinesaw, I've got Honeysmack, I've got Tomo Raw, I've got Surco, and unfortunately, Nathaniel, which is DJ Pierre, couldn't make it today because he has an extensive summer touring schedule. So unfortunately, he is around and he will be helping you out with the course. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it tonight. Now, I think you've been looking at my nice presentation long enough. Let me wave at you. Here I am. Here I am. Cool. Okay. So, yeah, I'm here. Thank you. What we are going to do now is going to go to Melbourne. I would like to introduce my first guest, actually. Now, you all know him as Honeysmack. I'm in the lucky position that I get to call him David. Are you there?
I'm right here. Can you hear me and understand me?
I can hear you. I'm not sure if I can understand you, but we'll make do.
I speak Australian. My English is not very good, so hopefully everyone understands.
Well, your music makes up for it, so you're excused, my friend. Thank you for being here.
No, thank you. No,
and in terms of dramatics, can you please tell the world what time it is over where you are now?
It is now almost 4:15 on Wednesday morning. So I'm talking to most of you from the future.
So yeah, you're talking to from, okay, this is what we do, Learn to Play Live. We will actually get you with the DeLorean into the future. Thanks. I've got a few questions for you, actually. And the questions are, when I was thinking of getting people on board to help out with this webinar presentation, I was thinking like, okay, who do I want to pick and why would I like to just address these cats and what is it that I think out of their live sets are absolutely awesome. Now, we were at Super Booth and we all performed at the same show. Actually, Surco did perform, Tomo was also there. It was amazing to see you perform. It really, really inspired me as well. So I was thinking, the crowd that are watching us right now, I think of some of the questions could be, what are your main ingredients? How do you come up with your ingredients for your song? That's the first question I'd like to ask you. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Okay, so I'm going to push back a little bit. I don't think I've ever made a song as such. Because I'm an improviser, everything is a performance, whether I'm in the studio or whether I'm on performing in front of a live audience. It's the same thing. So for me, it's the studio, whether it's the studio in my studio or the studio out in front of a live audience. So I always consider that I'm performing with a studio instrument. So every piece is like a module in my instrument. So, you know, the drum machine, be it a 909, a 303, the mixer, the effects units, the modular synth, any other synth that I have at my arsenal. And again, it's always changing. So I never have any set pieces because I allow the machines to take over some control to, you know, weave the flow and, you know, the ebb and flow of what I'm doing. The result comes from the construction and deconstruction of all the rhythms and tonal output of my gear. I never really look towards a particular outcome. I don't have like a sonic outcome in my head. I don't have any pre-planned. I know this might go against what everyone thinks, but I think that there's only so much you can plan. So my planning relates to what gear I'm going to take for that particular night, even with, say, the modular, like what modules I'm going to use. And some of those decisions are made literally 5 minutes before I pack up my gear and go to the event or the space where I'm going to play.
I'd like to just go into that a little bit. So to put it simply, you would look at your setup maybe as a electronic orchestra, and then the set pieces are being set in such a way according to the place where you're playing. So if you have to play a bigger arena, you might bring bigger players, or is that the way it works?
Correct, exactly. So it depends on the space I have and that I've given. Of course, I have a technical writer, but as kind of underground artists, we always have to be really flexible with the space we're given, and sometimes I won't be able to plug in, a drum machine or a synth. So it's actually being given those curveballs that actually help fuel the performance. So whilst I can prepare in the studio, I'm not preparing any set kind of sequences or patterns. What I'm doing is I'm creating something like actually. Some boxes I don't save anything whatsoever. I do a lot of like live sampling, say the modular or other synths. So you have to be able to let go of what you think you're about to do. I know that we always have some form of plan, and the plan can be, all right, I'm going to use box 1 and 2, but you just don't know. I actually believe that even a true professional or someone with a lot of experience really don't know what they're doing. I mean, they know how to use certain bits of gear, but I don't think you can really plan. If you really want a precise piece of music in this arena, like with techno or electronic dance music, then stay in your studio and use your DAW or the gear that you have at your arsenal at home or in the bedroom. But when you go out towards an audience, you have to give up some of that control. I think it's really important because those happy accidents is where the gold lies. I truly believe the things that I labor over always sound shit, and the stuff that I think, I don't think very much of it, everyone goes, oh, that was fucking amazing. So you never know where your success is going to come from, and you never know where you're going to resonate with people. Of course, you have some experience and you understand, the core, the fundamentals of what will work, but I don't think anyone really knows what will work. But you have to have an idea of, the foundational sounds and pieces. So I start off with if I show you my setup that I have here in my
Before you get to that, though, David, let me ask you a few things. First, because I do understand that you're saying, like, you know what, I don't really plan stuff ahead. And if you're starting out and you're a complete novice and you don't know anything, you're exactly in that same spot, because then the happy accidents will occur more often. Don't you feel, though, that once you have a little bit more of experience, it's also nerve-wracking to get to that point again, to really say, like, you know what, because you said something very interesting there. I think I have the utmost respect for you to think 10 minutes before you leave, hey, let's take that box. Because 9 out of 10 times when I do that, something ends up not working. So that is something that, for me, does not always work. So I salute you to that. That's very respectful. And I do believe that you, being a Learn-to-Play.Live teacher, thank you very much, is something that we can teach our students how to really savor and nourish that sort of like, I wouldn't say naiveness, but that rudimentary feeling. And then your setup, because you actually, what is the setup you're going to do something on? Can you play us something maybe? Play us a little bit and then explain what it is that you want. I see people in the chat that are also anxious to hear.
Yeah, so look, this is kind of like a typical setup. I mean, I'm in my studio at home, and you'll see that the mixer is just as important as the synth. So remember that the mixer is also an instrument. So at the moment, I have 6 sound sources. I've got the modular to the far left. I've got just underneath that little TR-09, which is my drum machine. I've got the octatrack. So the modular is going into the octatrack, and I'm resampling that live. I have the Melbourne Instruments Nina with the red buttons. I then have a 303 next to the octatrack, a machine drum, and I'm also got above the mixer, I've got an 808 plugged into. So if I go over and my microphone's about to cut out as I go to the line audio, I'll just play like a couple of a minute or so, and to show you that I've literally just got up, turned everything on. I haven't even prepared much. And to talk about that nervous energy, I think it's good to have that nervous energy that you're not sure what you're going to do. But I think the way to harness that energy is that, listen, no one knows that you don't know. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've purchased some things that you think, okay, I perhaps like that sound, and I'm going to make use of it. I think that's what you have to just kind of flip that energy. But let me go and play something. Is that right?
Yeah, please. Can you play something? I'm asking people in the chat if you have any questions. Please do drop them. Yes, we've got Honeysmack live in control, ladies and gentlemen. Let's listen. Oh, yeah. Yeah, can I get some applause, please? Woo!
How's that?
That was good. I was trying in my applause sample, but it didn't work out. So unfortunately, yeah, really, really cool. Nice. Okay, so elaborate. What is it that you did? Maybe you can change the camera and then tell us a little bit on what did what. But yeah, in a simple way, so that we all understand what happens.
Okay, so quite simply, no, I shouldn't say quite simply because it may not be simple for a lot of people out there. Again, it's my career, of 30 plus years has just been based on a 909 and 303, and I guess everything is an extension of that in very simple terms.
Any further, you have a PhD in acid, is it not?
I have, yes, unfortunately, I have a PhD in acid techno.
How do you get a PhD in acid techno?
Yeah, and performing live and improvising live.
No, but a PhD. How do you get a PhD into that, though?
You have to be a big idiot like me, how do you get a PhD? Well, I've been in and out. I've been teaching at universities for about 15 years. I'm no longer an academic, and I kept going to university to get access to gear because when I started out, we couldn't afford synthesizers, and computers weren't affordable either. So that's my journey, and I started teaching a little bit when I wasn't touring or recording, and really liked teaching. And just one thing led to another. I thought I will do what I think I do best, and I turned that into a PhD.
Okay, wicked. So, but I mean, I see a studio which is overwhelming with like a gazillion pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
I see a machine drum. I'm only seeing it now. Okay. I'm going over to your house and I'm sedating you. No, but I mean, in the end of the day, if you was to take 2 boxes, I mean, do you have to have this amount of equipment to make a convincing live set, would you say? Or can you do with just 2 boxes? Do you think there's a lot of people watching our stream right now thinking, okay, I might be interested in learning this stuff, but do I really need all that gear?
No, absolutely not. That's what I want to make very clear. You do not need this amount of gear. Just remember that what you're seeing, you're in my studio. This is a collection of 35 years of doing this and working in the industry. So, I was somewhat silly enough not to sell gear when I was younger. And when I started out, my 808 and 303s and 908s, they were cheap. They're being thrown away. So today they're trophy pieces, I guess. But you don't need this amount of gear. You just, I don't want to tell people that you need X amount of gear, but I think you're right, Lucian. I think you only need perhaps 2 boxes, a drum machine and maybe a synth of choice. Okay. But I also, I also think that you do need a mixer because, as you saw, I use the mixer as an instrument. I mean, it's the central, command unit, but it's manipulating audio. Don't dismiss a mixer as just being a utilitarian device. Carving out sounds and the change in volumes are literally part of the arrangement of either, your song or your performance, and that's really important. Okay,
so here we go. The world being the world it is right now. There's a nuke heading your way in about, say, maybe an hour. It's going to hit on your house. There's only 2 boxes you get to take, and you need to get to that secluded island. There is electricity, so you do get to play. What are you taking out of that collection?
What am I taking? I'd probably take a machine drum and a 303. Or my Nina.
Nice one.
Or a modular. Again, like the modular is good on its own because a modular is a complete ecosystem that you don't need anything else. So again, it's subjective. I think the strongest planning point of view that we have as human beings is that buy what you can afford, 1, and 2, just get anything because we are the best filters. Yeah. not the filter on a synth or a drum machine, but we act as filters as to our subjectivity as to what we like and what we dislike is really important because there's so much gear available these days. We're in fortunate times where gear is really affordable, so you just need to buy something and make use of it. Stop worrying about what people say sounds good or sounds bad. You've got to make your own choice and you've got to make it work, because the gear that actually started all this, the 808, the 909, and 303s, they weren't bought because of their sound. They were bought because they were cheap.
Yeah, exactly. Dirt cheap. Yeah.
I think as you develop your understanding of sounds and rhythms and beats, that's when you can start to have an informed opinion as to what module I might buy, or what drum machine, or what synth.
Okay.
I just see, this is the whole point about my PhD is I see the whole studio as an instrument. So I don't think that any particular piece is greater or lesser than the next piece. It's I'm performing with it all as a single instrument.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very, very much. I applaud you, and everybody in the chat will also applaud you. You are a LearnToPlay.Live coach, so people will actually also encounter you and the wisdom. I'd like to thank you, David, in Australia. Okay, so thanks, bro. So again, to narrow it down, keep stuff simple. In the end of the day, that's what it's all about. You have to start with a simple idea, and then you just build it up or build it out. Now, when I was in Berlin for Super Booth, and we did the party, Tomo and myself, we did a Raw versus a Kitchen Club event. I got to play with somebody that already played a few times at the Kitchen Club already, and I really, really liked the sound. But I didn't love the sound. Why? Because I didn't understand it at first. And now I got sucked into the hole. I would like to introduce to you my good friend, Surco. Now, Surco is in Denver. So we're going to fly all the way across the world. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, I really love the fact that you're not really making fun of me and laughing at me all the time as you see me, my modular exploding all the time, and having to come back to you and say okay, what does this do? What does that do? So I'm very happy that you came on today's show and that I get to pick your brain a little bit. Now, the topic that I want to run by you is writing simple drum patterns, drum sequences, that's one. And the all infamous or famous transition. Everybody's dreading the transition, so let's elaborate a little bit. So I hear a lot of people also in my Discord. I hear people say okay, now I got this loop. This loop works. Now I would like to make it into a longer track, or I'll need to make it into a jam. And now I need to transition into something else. It's very hard to actually do that. If I go back slightly in time, I think over the last weekend you played in Berlin, did you not?
I did, yes.
And you did play there for about 3 hours.
I did, yeah. 3-hour improvised live set. Very much the same style as what our friend David does. My sets are completely improvised. So when I'm doing a sound check before a set, I'll just use kind of whatever's in my sequencers from the last time I played. And then as soon as I finish the sound check, I blank everything. And so that way when I come back to play, I don't really have a starting point. I have to start writing from scratch.
You blank everything. How do you blank everything, Eric? What is blanking everything? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I go into my sequencer and I hit delete. And if you look in my patterns in my sequencer, I have 0 patterns saved. I have nothing.
No drums, no nothing. Nothing.
No nothing. No sequences saved at all. No.
And then how does this start? How does the whole process of you start where? Would you say okay, let's talk about that, because this is also something that people are thinking about. Do you start with mid-range like toms or claps or hats, or would you say I start with a kick immediately? How would you build that up? Are you looking at it as a pyramid sort of structure of building up the sound? Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, so just to give an example of the gig that I played last weekend, the people that played before me were playing, like 145 BPM acid techno. And I was playing kind of the main set, but the audience had been kind of going at it for a long time. So had I had something already prepared, I would have had to just kind of force that on them. So in that case, my start and my buildup was really different. The first thing that I did was take things back down again and start over again and begin with an atmospheric sound and kind of pull everybody into a mood rather than trying to just keep banging it out and banging it out after that. There's a place for that, but in this case, that didn't work. So if I would have had something preset, it wouldn't have fit with what I needed to do. So I was able to kind of bring the mood back and then build my set back. And so I think that's what you're asking about, is how I build my set.
Yep.
So really it's different. It kind of depends on the mood, but I like to look at my whole set kind of like the soundtrack to a movie. And so I want to make sure that it makes logical sense how I'm kind of pulling the crowd into that. So often what I like to do is I like to start off with maybe kick and low end, but filtered way up with a high pass filter. So you can only kind of hear a time, so it can get you dancing and get you to start moving, and then bring in that low end and kind of get everybody to say, oh yeah, that's what we're here for.
No,
but
I don't.
really,
I'm not buying
really
it. I'm not buying it. Can you please show me? Because I know you got a setup
Yeah.
right there. Show me that exactly thing, and then come back to me and let's talk about it.
Yeah, let me switch views here. Here we go. I'll do the overhead view so you can see what I'm doing with the sequencer.
I'm so happy that I'm not getting gas at this moment. I'm not getting gas at all. I'm not gassing at all.
Yeah, there's nothing here that's really worth
nothing
buying.
There's nothing in the bottom right corner that I would really like. So.
Yeah, this is a little sneak peek of something that's not quite out yet.
Okay. So you were talking about the low end being off the kick. That's what you said. So you started.
So like often I'll start with kind of a master filter, high passed, and you can see my sequencers are blank. So the first thing that I would probably do is start with a kick pattern, and then I can bring that kick drum in, but you're only hearing kind of the high end of that. I also have a sub pattern here, but you're not going to hear much of it because it's filtered out. So I can start to bring in sounds. For example, if I wanted to do something percussive, I can start to bring things in that you don't necessarily hear all of, that this can kind of start a mood, or an atmosphere can come in to start a mood. So you can get something going, but then when you really want people to dance, you can take off that filter, and then all of a sudden you get the low end.
But what I find is that the levels that you are using are already there. I mean, you're not really EQing anything. It means that your sound design has to be right on point, right?
Yeah, so there's a few different things that start this kind of whole mood. So like with the setup here, I have individual instruments like a kick drum. With my kick, one of the advantages of doing something in kind of the modular world, or with certain desktop synths as well, if there's not a lot of functions that something does, there's not going to be a lot of menus. So you can look at something and see what it's going to sound like. So for example, this kick drum right here, if I wanted this to sound like an 808 without messing or without hearing what it's doing, I could take the sound and I could make it go like this. And I know that when I bring this up, it's going to have a much lower boomy low end sound. Where if I wanted it to sound more 909-ish, I can change that up on here and I can bring something in like that. So having devices where you can actually see physically what they're doing is really handy. And it's one of the things I love about modular, because I don't cue things before I bring them in, and I'm writing things live in the moment. So I need to be able to have some sort of confidence that when I bring something in, it's going to sound more or less the way I want it to, and then I can adjust it really quickly to the sounds that I'm looking for.
Okay, but that's you. That's you adjusting something to where you are. What is the benefit of having a changeable kick when you play different venues? What would you say is the benefit of that?
So as you mentioned before, you were talking about one of the more difficult things to do is transitioning. And I get asked all the time how to transition. And my answer that nobody likes is that I don't, because I'm not trying to get from point A to point B. My live set, as with what David was talking about before, my live set is one experience. It's one evening. So if I have a kick drum that's sounding a certain way while I'm playing that along, rather than changing from kick drum A to kick drum B and finding some sort of way to make that not sound awkward without DJ mixing and all of the stuff that we would normally use if we were DJing from one preset to another, I can just take this and I can morph it. I can change things, like I can shorten decays, I can add drive, I can add transient, I can change pitch. So I can make this into another drum live in front of the crowd. So what I'm doing is I'm transitioning individual instruments one at a time, rather than trying to go from all of them to all of them in a totally different state.
So
and
what I
way
can
it
actually
helps keep those
tell,
transitions smooth.
what I would tell you then is, if I have to narrow it down, is you don't actually transition, you would morph. But what you just did in the 10 seconds, that might take you maybe 2 hours to get from this one bass drum to the next, in order to really, work that way. Okay.
Yep. One thing I would add too, as far as drums and percussion go, I think people have gotten in their head that every track that they play has to sound totally different from the last one. And if you think about it, it's a lot because we're either listening to playlists or we're listening to DJ sets. And those DJ sets and those playlists are made up of all sorts of different artists. But if you listen to an individual artist and you listen to their catalog, you're going to hear a lot of similarities from track to track because that's their sound. And when you're playing live, you're playing as an artist. You're not playing other people's music. So to have signature sounds, I kind of think about it like, rock bands back in the day, the Rolling Stones didn't change kick drums between sounds. They had a sound that was their sound, and they had the confidence to stick to that while they were playing, rather than trying to always try to make every single thing completely different from one track to another.
Okay, so how much of sounds that you have are drum sounds? How much of the sounds are actual noisy sounds? How are you doing that?
So it's interesting. You and I think, actually look at this pretty differently. I don't look at this as each thing as an individual role. I try to make a modular case where individual modules have a lot of flexibility to be a lot of different things. So I can have something like, the Bastel Pizza, which I can have something like this playing, and then I can quickly change that into a totally different sound without changing up without changing up the actual voice itself. So rather than saying this is going to always be my percussion, this is going to always be my hi-hats, this is always going to be my lead, or this is always going to be my bass, everything in this case is designed to be able to be flexible and be a lot of different things. And what I find that allows me to do is, back to that transition idea, if you're trying to get from, let's say one lead to another lead, you can either morph the lead you have, or you can use another device as the lead. Where if you have one thing that's always your lead, it's really difficult to find a smooth way to get from one lead to another using that same device if you're not morphing. If you have a preset that you're going to another preset, it's really a challenge to make that sound smooth without DJ mixing. So this way you can morph individual things into all sorts of other things.
It sounds very interesting. How would you say your development of your modular journey? I don't want to go too nerdy into the modular thing, but what I do want to tap into is it's like an instrument that's constantly evolving and stuff. I heard you say that you have a way of testing stuff out before you actually put it into practice. How does this work? What is the process? How do you do it?
Yeah, so for me, I keep I limit myself to 12U 84 HP, so that this case, which can kind of fold up and be taken with me in a rolling carry-on bag, I can't go bigger than this. So if I want something new in the case, it has to kind of earn a spot there. So I have this other studio modular, which is kind of like where my modules live that don't necessarily lend themselves to live performance. They're better for sound design stuff. Or if I have something new, I might connect it here, and I can always cross patch and I can try things and say, oh, I do like that one. Now where do I fit it into the case? What goes out so that that one has kind of earned a new spot into it? So everything that's here kind of serves a purpose. And if I'm going to take something else and put it in, it has to either replace something that's here in its purpose, or it has to serve another purpose that I'm not able to do with what I have right here in my case.
Yeah, very, very, very interesting. I really like that. So what's next for you? Where are you playing in the world? Have you got something else in Europe, or what are you doing?
My plan right now is to be in Europe all of October. So I'm trying to set up as many gigs as I can. So if you guys know anybody out there, let me know. But trying to put together as much as I can. Obviously centered around ADE. And I'll be going to that for sure. And then here in the States, between now and then, I have a show in Chicago, a show in Cleveland, I have a show in Tijuana, Mexico, a show in San Diego, and then we'll be going to Europe for October.
Okay. So I've still got another question for you in terms of the drums that you can elaborate. So cadence and call and response. Again, has to do with a little bit of mixing, and it has to do with a little bit of placement of the drums. I think that if people are out there in the chat, if you got questions, guys, don't be afraid to ask them. I see Sprites in the chat, I see Lemmy's in the chat, Brian's in the chat, Deborah's in the chat also. That's really cool. I did see Christian Doming earlier, so welcome, guys. If you have any questions, just shoot, and I will put them out there. Very important. I mean, in my set, I don't know how it works in your set, but cadence, so the balance between things, the pulsating thing, almost the heartbeat of the groove maybe, and then the call and response. If it's not, it might be the same. How do you go about it? Can you play something and show us?
Yeah, sure. Real quick, there's a couple different things there. One, for me, with the type of music that I do, kind of more hypnotic techno, it's all about the drums and the groove. It's all about, because people are listening to it to dance. This isn't kind of sing-along music. You're there to dance and have a good time. So the idea is to keep them dancing with the drum groove, and then melodic and tonal things like that. For me, it's to give them something interesting to listen to while they dance. But that melody and those things aren't really what's making them dance. What's making them dance is the drum groove. The drums
exactly.
And the
that's exactly it. So that's what if you have to dilute it a little bit. Can you say
for
something
example,
in the drums?
I like to do things where those foundational elements that keep them dancing are they are simple. There's a reason why you don't hear a lot of Aphex Twin music in the club, even though it's great, because it's really complex and it's not as easy to dance to. Where you might have something that stays a 4-on-the-floor kick for a while, or that goes to a broken kick for a little while, that's much more kind of primal and easier to dance to. So just to give a little bit of an example here, I'll build something up here with a little background. Just to talk through this really quickly, I like to keep my drum and percussion, switch views here. I like to keep my drum and percussion sequences relatively short so that they're easier to change up. So for example, you'll see this is 8 steps to do a 4-on-the-floor kick. One of the reasons for that is because if I decide during my show I want to change that up to do a broken beat kick, I can just filter things out. I can change 2 steps, and now I have a broken beat kick. And so it's really quick and easy to make those things happen live in the moment, or you can just change them up.
Can you leave this running? I would like to explain something to the crowd that are listening to this. This actually is a call and response example. You hear the kick, boom, da 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 da. 1, 2, da 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 da. So on the 1 and the 2, you hear a clear sound of the bass drum, and the bass drum is not really being diluted, but because of that da 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 over the groove, it actually fires up an upbeat, making this 1, 2, 3, 4, giving you the incentive to just stay on the floor and keep in that loop. And that's something that I hear you do a lot of times, though, Eric. I really love the fact that you're actually doing that. So this is an absolutely amazing ensemble of call and response. And can you add something more to this then? What would you add to this?
Well, just to give you an example too, and this goes back to kind of gear selection that you were talking about before. One of the reasons why I like to use a sequencer where I can have multiple tracks that I can see visually. Again, before I bring something in, I have that percussion bit going here, and then there's a blank space, and I can see that I can put something else on another instrument into that blank space before I even bring it in. So if I was to bring in, let's say, a hat, so I can get a call and response between the percussive element and the hat, I don't have to hear that and cue that and pre-prepare that if I have something that I can see visually laid out in front of me, so I can see where there's empty spaces. And that's another thing that I think is really key when you're talking about drums and percussion, is that you want to make sure that you don't pile things up on top of each other, because we don't have the ability with, side chain and all sorts of things that you have in a DAW to be able to fix those messes after we've created them. So I try to not create the messes in the first place by, if you notice, that percussive element doesn't have steps where there's kicks. And then there's other things that also, they don't go together. If I was to make this a broken beat, now those things line up on those steps and you don't hear the percussive element as much. So I might move them.
So to keep it really simple for people, can you point out
on
where these instruments are on the sequences that you have? Like, I see a rows from top to bottom. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8.
Yeah, so in this section, I'm only actually using three of the lanes. So track 8 here is my kick drum.
Yep.
So that's, here, I'll show you. That's this one right here. Track 7 is hi-hat, which is this one right here. And then track 6 is a percussive element, which is the percun's voice. And that's doing kind of a tom element with a little bit of decay, or a little bit of a delay. And then you put those together, you can hear the call and response between the drum, or between the percussive element and the hi-hats, and then you can give that back a 4 on the floor kick to kind of keep the time. And then I fill out the low end a bit with a sub.
Now, I would like to tell everybody when you're listening to this, Eric makes it sound very simple, but keep in mind there's something that he didn't tell you, but that's something that is his talent, and I hear him do that in all different clubs. Whenever he is doing this stuff, there's also something that I call transients. So all these little sounds are playing together. I hear the same sort of fabric in the attack, or the articulation maybe, to keep it simple, in the different sounds. So the kick has a certain way of starting, traveling and ending, and the toms do the same thing, and even the hats have a bit of that kind of a groove. So obviously with the sound system, and this is to do with experience. At LearnToPlay.Live, we will teach you on how to figure that stuff out. How does it work? Because this is a mistake a lot of people make. They try to even put 3 things together and they don't really gel together, because it's like a desert with a stone on the left, a stone in the middle, and a stone on the right. That does not compute. It has to overlap in a certain way. We'll get into that. But I wanted to give you that compliment, Eric, because I hear it now. Thanks. And it sounds wicked. And I also heard you say something about how you like the flexibility of the shaping the kick drum to the different venues where you play, because it's always different.
Yeah, and I would say not even just the kick drum. For me, that's kind of everything. When you look at the modules that I have here, and I'll go back to my other views so you can see a bit more, even just the sounds that I was just using there. So you have a kick drum sound where you can adjust the transient, and you can really add more transient if that fits for the moment. You can really lengthen the decay if that fits, or you can shorten it up and make it really punchy. But that's not only with the kick, you can do that also with the hats. So I can lengthen out that decay, I can change the pitch or the filter on that, change the tuning, or keep it really tight if that's what I want to fit. And the same with the percussive elements. So I can take out that decay, but with this, I've got a decay on this, I can shorten it, and I can make it just a pulse, or I can make it really long. I can take out that kind of snare fuzz if I want it to just be a tom, or I can add in some more noise to make it more percussive so that it kind of comes through. And then when you start to add in other elements, like for example, if I was to add in a sub bass sound, that can kind of take up a bunch of the low end, but these other elements you still hear because you shaped the sound in such a way that they can be heard through the mix, rather than trying to do the sort of bad habits that we build up in a DAW, where you pile everything one on top of the other and then you just try to sidechain it all to make space. We can't do that here. So you have to think a lot more in advance about where things fit, or think while you're making them about where things fit in order to make it not sound bad, and then you have to try to clean it up afterwards.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Eric. Well, again, I'd like to applaud you. Applause. Thank you very much. Again, people, you see a big modular setup, but in order to make it work, you hear 3 concise drum sounds in order for Eric to get going and get the show on the road. So essentially, it means you can do that with a smaller sort of like setup. Okay. Thanks, Eric. We'll speak. Thank you very, very much. Let's hop in the DeLorean and let's go all the way to the other side of the pond. And we're going to end up in Italy, where we are going to meet up with Enrico Della Vasana. Della, otherwise known as Sinesaw. Welcome, my friend.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hey.
So, how's it going?
Yeah. I mean, are you going to tell me about the touring that you've been doing, or are we not going to mention that?
Well, we're going to mention that later. But yeah, that's also why I don't have the complete setup of cameras, so I cannot show you everything from the top, from the side and everything. I only have these few, but it's going to be enough for explaining everything.
Now, I see you have got a logo on your chest, which is IK Multimedia, because you are also, what are you with IK Multimedia?
Well, currently I'm head of product for the hardware department, meaning that I'm basically the head of all the product managers, basically taking care of all the products coming out from the other department. They are at IK Multimedia.
Nice. That means that you at some point were also involved in a synthesizer creation and all those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Is that what sparked your love for synthesizers and hardware so much?
Well, not really. I mean, that's something that came out quite a lot of time ago, which, fun fact, when I was, I think 14, 15, when I started going into the electronic music, because right before I was mostly a guitar player and a singer in punk bands, and yeah, that was it. When we started recording our songs with just one microphone and the tower computer for home, stealing it from my family basically, I discovered that you could do electronic music into the computer, and fun enough, I discovered that there were synthesizers outside the computer. So my first encounter with a synth was inside the computer, and for me that was it. Another thing didn't exist, but then I went to my first musical instrument shop and I found out, oh, but that's the keyboard. That's exactly how the Reason 2.5 is actually showing me. So I understood that there was also the other synths and stuff. And in fact, my first synth was the Novation Supernova 2 version.
Nice.
Yeah, that was my first synth. Yeah, I went pretty hard on that. And yeah, from there I started making music, producing. I got into sound engineering. I went all around Europe. So I went to the Netherlands, then Ireland, then Germany. Then I came back to Italy. And now, yeah, thanks to all the experience in sound engineering and artist relations and producing, I'm now working for IK Multimedia in the other department, where a couple of years ago we made our first steps into the synthesizer area, and And yeah, I was the product manager at the time with also Eric Norlander, which is now working for Moog. And I think probably the Moog Messenger is actually one.
That's how we met, actually, didn't we?
Yeah.
A few years ago through that. Hey, before we get into that, I spoke to Aura when I was at Super Booth, and also he is coming from a sort of like punk rock background. It's very funny how a lot of punk rockers found their way into DAWless synthesizer production. I mean, I did not come from punk rock. I did like hard rock when I was a kid, though, in the music school. But I'd like to know, maybe in the chat, are there any other past post-punk rockers there? Yeah, I'd like to hear from that.
It's also in our background.
In the background, and okay, we met a few moons ago, and we've hung out, and now in a few weeks' time, we actually will be gracing a stage together in Italy. Is that not so?
Yep, it's going to be the weekend of the 8th and 9th of August. It's going to be near Rome, in a splendid location. It's kind of the top of the hills near Rome. It's beautiful. The party is pretty nice. My location is going to be inside the ruins of an old temple, while your location is going to be into a winery, which is unbelievably cool. So yeah, we're going to play there, of course. And in fact, now I'm actually in a set which is completely different from the usual. I tried also something completely different.
I'm so not ready, man. I'm so not ready. I still have a lot to do. I thought I was there. Then you say like you got like what 16 tracks, some sort of.
Yeah, but the funny part, the funny thing is that all the guys, I mean David and Eric, said, well, I'm basically the Antichrist for them because I'm preparing everything. So I'm
also doing a lot of preparation.
But I'm kind of preparing everything. Not in the sense that I work a lot because on songs, meaning that coming from a background of playing in bands or recording bands and stuff like that, I'm so used to structures. And I'm a lover of some old. I mean, I don't think actually Underworld and Chemical Brothers are old. So yeah, or at least I hope not. But anyway, I'm sort of in that area of electronic music. So I think about performing as a concert in a sense of a band, or anyway in terms of songs. So I prepare a lot of I would say patterns actually, because they're not really. I'm not really in front of a computer preparing a song, then cutting stuff and then putting it into the machines. I'm mostly I have a pattern that I was playing because. Yeah, I'm rehearsing and I'm trying to get into these instruments.
How do you do it then? Are you more jamming with the equipment? Do you choose your equipment in terms of what it can do for you? How is your electronic orchestra situated? What would you do? What would you use for drums, for instance? Let's go there.
Well, one of the things that I think is also common for all of us is I tend to create my own limitations. So I do have a drum machine which does the drums. Actually I like samples for drums.
What drum machine do you have?
What?
What drum machine do you have?
I'm using the TR8S because it has both the Virtual Analog stuff and FM and samples.
Okay.
So I can prepare all my samples, which I don't know, maybe I created somewhere else or some other stuff. I can put it inside, and I either program the pattern inside the drums, or I use the Octatrack to play drums.
Okay, just quick fast. I see that in the chat, most of them are drummers, is what I see. I see that Sprite is saying, yeah. Sprite said that he was punk, then goth, then electronic music via 80s synth pop. Okay, now Lemmy says never an ex-drummer, just playing one, not currently playing one, so he's drumming without a drum kit, is what I see. I think Brian Rogers is also drumming. Brian says, also, this is a question for Surco that maybe we can say how many elements is Surco working at any time. That's something that I will get into in a second. And I was just going to ask if Sinesaw has ever gone in with a blank sequencer.
Yes, that's the point. So in the setup that I'm doing, I have a lot of sequences prepared and everything, but exactly as David and I think in the beginning, the main thing of everything is I have a drum machine and a 303. So wherever I want to go out and get lost with any sensation that I'm feeling it, I can go and create whatever I want on the drum machine, whatever I want on the 303, and just go with it. But instead of using instruments, sometimes I'm using a lot of effects. Meaning, I can simply, given that everything is connected to a very weird and I think underrated mixer, which is the Roland MX1.
Okay.
I can do whatever effects I want on anything. So, for example,
Can you play something? Can you play something that you've been working on?
So, for example, now I do have a sample. No, let's put it this way: I have a sample that I have on the outro track, which is fine.
There's no
fancy, just a funky sample. If I want, I can even put it in and create something. Yeah, like that.
When you play the music, otherwise we don't hear the music.
Turn off your microphone when you play the music.
Yeah, if you keep your microphone on, we don't hear the music.
Fair enough.
Oh, again, it cuts out.
Yeah, the music cuts out.
Well, anyway, I don't need the music to explain it anyway. So, to move on. Anyway, I do have some samples on the octa track that I can put through a lot of other effects between delays, cutters, rolls, and whatever. So the same sample can become whatever I want. So as soon as if I want to go completely out of the my schedule, let's put it this way. I don't have a better word at the moment. I can just go for it. Whatever instrument it is, the bass, the synthesizer, the 303 or whatever, and just start programming on the drum machine and on the 303. That's where I feel more comfortable because again, I think as David said, and everybody I think can agree. The point is knowing the instrument that you're playing.
Okay, there's some questions that are coming in for you, actually. I see that Deborah is asking, question for Sinesaw. If you only had the TR8 and the 303, what would be your biggest advantage with the TR8 in combination with the 303? How would that present it in your sets?
Well, the first advantage is I will not need a mixer. For example, if I need to be in a very small place, I would not need a mixer. I could use all the effects on the TR8S in order to affect also the 303 going to the inputs of the drum. If I'm using a mixer or anyway other effects pedals, that's even better. I can sidechain the 303 also with with the TR-8S. So basically, given that I know everything about that instrument because I read the manual, those ones.
Okay.
I actually read the
You
manual.
actually read them. You're a rare breed. Musicians that read
Yeah,
manuals. Do they
I
exist?
actually, it might be a job deformity. I mean, yeah, I write manuals, so I'm actually curious about the other people manuals.
Ah,
But
okay,
anyway,
okay. If you write manuals, then obviously then you've got an unfair advantage. Hey, there's another question, by the way. I see that Mos D, I think that is Daniel out of Germany. Question to Della: how do you transition?
I have two methods. First method is using a lot of effects, of course. So, for example, I'm playing a track. So I have my drum sounds going, I have my bass going, maybe the sample or the effects. I either go completely mental on one instrument. So I don't know, I'm just gonna get everything super affected on, let's say, the synthesizer that is playing. So a lot of delays. Maybe I start sidechaining it. I start filtering it while I'm going. I'm putting everything away, so that only the effects and the rhythm remains. And then I start putting the next song rhythm, so like a little bit of a DJ thing. So the next song rhythm starts getting into your head. Then the kicks goes out, so I can change even the song on the TR-8S. So there's the new kick arriving, because, for example, I'm one of the guys that.
I'm gonna stop you right now, man. I'm gonna stop you. Turn off the microphone and show us how you do it.
Let's
Don't turn off the microphone, otherwise the music is gonna get cut out. So if you turn your microphone off, we can hear the music. No, it's gone. It's gone. The music is...
Now I really don't know why it's not working, but to me it might be problem for
I
me.
think in Zoom, there's a setting in Zoom where you have to put the music for musicians on. It's a thingy. We'll make sure.
Well, anyway,
we're gonna make sure that we will do. Okay, I see that.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen during the. It's definitely not gonna happen during the courses, because, of course, now everything I kind of have everything in my suitcase for because I'm traveling with a band now. I'm following them.
We'll get to the band. We'll get to the band in a second. I see Christian Domi is asking. I see he has the TR-8S and a Master Effects on the Octatrack sitting there. Which do you all like better in the role, and why?
That's another question. At this moment, I'm actually using the TR-8S. Because I think it sounds better for what I'm doing, but it's simply a matter of, to me, it's mostly a matter of what sounds I want, what type of sound I want. So, using the Octatrack for me will mean having something a little bit more lo-fi-ish, so a little bit more warm, probably. While when I'm using the TR-8S is mostly because I want a lot of clarity and a lot of more clarity out of it. Yeah. So but it's weird because at the moment everything is going. So I have the Octatrack, the MC707, the 303, and the voice going into the mixer, which is going into the drum machine. Okay. So I'm using the mixer in reverse.
You're using the mixer. Basically. Okay, so now we get to that point. It's the last question I would like to ask you. You have been away from your own music because you've been touring with a band as a sound engineer. Is that correct?
Mostly, well, not really as a sound engineer. Mostly as a backliner for them. So the synthesizer and the guitar and bass tech
What is the band name? Ta-ta-da-da-da-da.
Yes, I'm actually the backliner for Soulwax this tour.
So you've been on tour with Soulwax and stuff. Is that not giving you
Yeah.
gas? Did you not buy shitloads of equipment just touring with them?
Well, yes, but weirdly enough, those are not instruments. I'm mostly buying, cases or small interfaces or cables. A lot of cables. I need a lot of cables. And colored tape, actually. So, but yeah, that's why all my setup is a little bit not really working as expected because I have my...
Yeah, it's no problem. And you've got noise cancellation on in your Zoom thing, so that we need to address the next time.
Yeah.
Are there any Soulwax remixes coming in the near future then? Might there be?
Not for me at the moment. I know a lot of stuff is going on in the background because, of course, as you might have noticed, they are coming out with a new album.
Yes.
Which they are playing now all around Europe. The next gig is in fact this weekend in London actually.
Nice.
So yeah, the album is pretty cool, and it was fun to see all the people trying to sing songs that weren't out yet doing their sound.
People are trying to sing to lyrics that do not exist in their brain already.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing. I forgot to ask all the other guys. How do you respond playing live when people come up with their phone and they have this nice find on they're trying to find what's the app again? They try to just like stick the phone in the air and try to find the song. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're trying to, they're like, and it's like, yeah, is this the song? And I'm like, yes, it's there. It's not SoundCloud. It's Soundhound or Shazam. The Shazam. People are actually Shazamming when I'm doing a set, and they're like, and then Shazam for some reason comes up with this AI BS, like it's this, and I'm like, yeah, that's the song, and they're like, oh my god, I'm so happy, and that's also a funny part when you do live. You don't really have these copyright issues because most of the stuff that you're doing is on the fly. I'm with you though, Della. I am also somebody who has been preparing a lot of stuff beforehand, but you know what? I keep a lot of empty patterns in. I'm doing the same thing that Depeche Mode is doing. Certain things are live and certain things are on tape. A lot of people don't know it, even Michael Jackson when he was alive and Beyonce even. You cannot dance, jump around and stuff and sing the high notes. So some things are on tape, old school. Some things are being improvised and some things are being live. So that's what I'm doing right now. I am actually doubling up on my channels. So I've got like 4 channels dedicated to the bass line, but only one is playing the bass line. On the second one, it's blank, but I can also just address it. So if I feel bold enough, I can play it over there. So that's actually what we're doing. I'm going to see you in the flesh in a few weeks, my brother.
I'm waiting for that.
And you told me to bring my yellow spandex swimsuit because it's going to be, 36 degrees or something?
It's going to be, 36. Well, today here, which is in Modena, which is up in the north, that was 36 degrees, so it was hot. So yeah, be prepared. But, there's going to be...
I'm going to ask the guys in the chat to braid me some underwear from MIDI cables, maybe. It looks sexy. All right, thank you, my friend. Applause. Sinesaw. Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. I will see you in a few weeks. Okay. Are there any questions in the chat that we still need to address at the moment before we hop in our DeLorean and whiz over in our time machine to go to Split, actually? We are going to Split, and this is my evil twin brother, whose better half comes from the same country as where I come from. So Tomo and myself, being absolute opposites in the way we look, but having the same kind of soul, enjoy the same sort of soup, enjoy the same sort of Suriname humor, and I'm so happy to introduce this cat, because the first time when I met him, we got instantly into a discussion on what sounded better. I didn't know him, haven't seen him forever, as like, I like this, no, I don't like it because it was this, it was that. So instantly I knew I was gonna get along with this guy because, where he goes left, I go right in terms of certain interpretations of sound. Then again though, We all love music. We love the dollars aspect. I give you Tomo. Very happy.
Hi.
Here he is. Here he is. My blonde
guys.
Viking brother. How are you doing? You're actually on a holiday, are you not?
I'm on vacation, so I'm doing great.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you got more clothes on than I saw you earlier. You just came out of the sea, I think you did.
Yes, I did.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Tomo, tell me a little bit about yourself because you have been all over the shop. You've been all over the place. I see a lot of your movies online. One thing that struck me the most is the amount of huge ass shows that you are playing. Unbelievable. I mean, to like thousands and thousands of people. How did that come about? Did you just work on that, or have you always been this enfant terrible that plays all over the world? What's that? What's going on?
I actually really do this for a long time. And luckily, I never did anything else but music, for my whole life, So and then after the years, which I have, because this is a real gray, beard, it kind of resulted in that I can play a lot. I mean, this year a little bit less because I decided to go a little bit back to the studio. A lot of labels are asking me for music. I never have the time to do it, and so I said, okay, let's take a year like easier schedule. But still, mostly playing 2-3 times a month. I mean, last year I did like 80-90 gigs a year, so it's a lot. I mean,
Well, I saw a picture just a few weeks ago of you playing. Where was this? I mean, you played like it was like 5,000-6,000. It was like, I show a picture to you, I'm playing here, and then you just counter with, well, I'm playing here. And I'm like, why did I say this picture,
Yeah, I played Ultra Europe Resistance stage. That was actually a week ago. That's why I stayed here in Split. I mean, since Ultra Europe is in Split, and it's more like 40,000 people. So, it's probably the biggest show here in the south of Europe. And this was the third time I'm playing Resistance stage. I played once also Ultra Europe 4 years ago.
Who else was on? Who else was playing there?
Sorry?
Who else was playing there?
Oh, this year, Carl Cox, Solomon, Adam Bear, Emily Lance. I mean, a lot of big names. I mean, so and but it's kind of based around the style of Carl Cox, what he does. So all the big techno names. I mean, that's basically what's there. But it's a great opportunity because the equipment, the stage, the light, everything is like top notch. Like what they have as a monitoring, usually the clubs don't have as a PA. So you have no problems like hearing bass or whatever you want.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you told me something. You say like, okay, I've been doing it for such a long time. Does that actually mean that you are not getting nervous anymore when you play to 40,000 people?
No, always. I always get nervous. That I think that never changed. I mean, and it's definitely part of the whole process. Being nervous, and but I think there are two different types of nervous. One is, I also DJ a lot. I mean, it's not really like a typical DJ set. It's more like a Ableton, loop type of thing. And then, of course, modular and then hybrid, So let's say everything from full live to kind of in between. So the biggest fear is always the technological, issues, possible. And, where when you do only modular, it's almost bulletproof, works, except if something really dies on stage. But generally, less problems. But the moment you have kind of MIDI involved and, and modular and Ableton, then you are kind of going into a direction that something could really go wrong.
Yeah, there's always, in my community, we call it ghost in the machine syndrome. You have it set up, it works, you, for some reason, unplug it and put it back together at the place where you're playing, and then sounds are gone. It's just ghost in the machine.
I don't think it's the ghost in the machine. It's that today all manufacturers are selling us better products. That's the problem. None of the stuff is tested. None of the stuff None of the software is tested to the end. I mean, nothing is really tested. Also, just if you take in mind the heat, like here when I play, I mean, it's summer, it's really hot, it's 40 Celsius and the sun is shining on the stage, so when you leave your stuff there, it's in the sun. I mean, computer starts overheating. I mean, everything goes wrong. I mean, with that. So and unfortunately, that's where we live today technologically. That we have a lot of really good technology, but nothing is really tested to the end.
In the end of the day, though, I mean, it happens. I do know that it happens, but do you not embrace it? I do embrace a little bit of the pain, to be honest. Because it made me, now let's circle back. I was chicken shit for the longest part of my life. I made Quadrophonia ages ago, and instead of doing what a lot of people were doing, breaking up the studio and hauling it all around the world, I went like, let's DJ, that's safe. Because I knew with all the MIDI connections, something is bound to go wrong. Here we are years later, and I'm hauling all my studio all over the world, and stuff does go wrong. I think it's nerve-wracking, but it did make me a better musician, because I have to now forcibly find solutions to stuff that is going wrong. I mean, people in my community know it already. I was playing in Paradise in Amsterdam. You can't get a bigger venue where Snoop Dogg and Depeche Mode and the Rolling Stones, everybody's played there, so I was happy to play there. And 15 minutes before my set, all the samples had the same start and end point in my octatrack. That meant no sound, no live set, nothing. Lucky I started halfly on a new live set, but that just happened 15 minutes when people started coming like, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? And the act before was like, are you ready? And I'm like, not really. So shit happens. How do you deal with stuff that goes wrong? Your computer's overheating, or like you say, you think manufacturers are making stuff different from back in the days. How do you deal with that? What is your fail-safe when that stuff is happening?
Okay, so if we talk big shows like Ultra, then it's redundancy. I have push 3, so I have my set in push 3. I have 2 computers with me. I have 2 modular with me, and everything is wired the way that if something dies, I just throw it out of the chain, so it's gone. I mean, and last, but not least, always the modular relatively always works in some way. So if everything really dies, I can always continue just playing on my modular, and that's, and then plus I save everything, on Google Drive. I save everything, on another SSD drive. I mean, so everything is like triple, quadruple, because when you play in a smaller club and something stops, dies, it's okay. People see you, they will laugh. I mean, they'll kind of be okay with it. In front of 40,000 people, you're so far away, they have no idea, why the music stopped. I mean, so and they don't care whatever reason is behind it. I mean, so there you really kind of have to be prepared, so.
Okay, so I see questions coming in the chat. Brian is asking, does Tomo live patch the rig during performing, or is it pretty much static, all red cables? How does he know what is what with your module, with all the red cables? How do you, is this what it is, or how does it work?
I mean, let's say like this, 70% is pre-patched, and 30% I do patch, but it kind of really also depends, if I play somewhere where I have a good sound, good monitoring, actually, it's even more important than the sound, then I can dare changing much more than I would do in a club where I cannot really hear what I'm doing. I'm very similar to, to both Eric and David. I have some of my stuff I have maybe saved, but most of the stuff is really improvisation, and especially, when it comes to sounds, they change completely. I mean, all the time. I mean, and so therefore, it's let's say 80% improvisation, and so like there's no plan to stick with it. I mean, and actually, Eric and me and you and David in Berlin went through that last time.
Oh, yeah, we did.
That everything went wrong, what could go wrong. I mean, so
I learned a
you know,
lot
so
from it,
if you
though.
have
I did learn a lot from it. I'd like to go into something that Seppo Molelekoa, if I'm pronouncing that well, sorry if I butchered your name. He's saying, answers my question. It's not safe to play live on one piece of gear. This is where I tend to disagree. When I go to a rock concert, I mean, okay, they've got multiple guitars, but in the end of the day, you know, I mean, when you look at Queen or you look at Bob Marley, there was a certain sound that they had, they perfected it, and that was it. So, yeah, I do think you can do stuff with one synthesizer. You don't have to rely on stuff is going to go wrong anyway. I mean, the more boxes you bring, of course, more problems might occur. I welcome it a little bit. I love it. So, like Tomo was saying, the setup that I'm going to show you in a second, I have got fail-safes for that. If one MIDI loop or something stops, another can take over. And I'm smart enough to not rely on the one MIDI chain with 15 things in it. If the train pulling the wagons is dying, then all the wagons are dying. So I've got multiple things running, but at the same time, sometimes you will find that just playing with one box, it's also very cool to just like master that box and do stuff with it. And if it stops, it stops. When I was playing records, that's happened. If the needle breaks, the needle breaks. So that is what it is. Now, a few questions for you, Tomo. How do you translate what you hear on your headphones there in the studio, because you're on a vacation, you still manage to squeeze your little modular into your pocket to see, so I hope the missus is not going to kill you. But you are listening to your stuff on your headphone, you're tweaking it, and then you get to this 40,000 capacity stage. How actually are you translating those sounds to the big rig, to the big sound system?
Again, you know, I'm always saying it's a big difference where you play. So I generally hate headphones, you know, and I have friends who can do everything on headphones and do even great mixes and mastering and everything. I was never one of them, you know. And so for me, headphones, I really have only two uses. One is as a reference, which then I use, you know, shitty headphones, because that's what most of the people are today listening. Spotify is on shitty headphones, not on good headphones, you know, or closed headphones, which I use when I play in a place which has bad monitoring and where I just have to put headphones and do the whole thing via headphones, you know, to kind of know actually what I'm doing at all. You know? So,
well, what do you mean with closed headphones? You mean the ones that are closed on the side of your head, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, you know, yeah. So over ear, big headphones, loud ones. I use the ones, you know, with the impedance for smartphones, so they're extremely loud, and you know, and that's the only thing live which can kind of cut out the surrounding sound, and you kind of know what you're doing, you know.
Okay.
And but I'm saying I was never really the friend of it, but you know, but I'm doing this for such a long time. You know, I do also play with bands. I also play guitar, you know, so it's not only that I do electronic
you again?
music.
You're also punk rock, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Yep, I can put them on here. Okay, so Deborah Strax is saying in the chat, actually, Jeff Mills, isn't he the wizard with nothing but one box? And that box is the almighty 909 drum computer. Deborah, yeah, that's right. Noisy said, I experienced inserting and unplugging patch cables rhythmically, not almost percussively while performing. What's your thoughts on that? Did you integrate techniques like that as well? Just patching and unpatching. I don't understand, Noisy Are you saying that you're making rhythmical experience inserting and unplugging patch cables rhythmically? Almost, it sounds like you're using your modular as a means to make rhythmical stuff. Do you also do that? Is what Noisimon is asking. To plug and unplug.
Sorry, I did plug and unplug while I'm playing, or what?
Yeah, while you're playing. Rhythmically, I hear. I don't know. So sometimes I think he's saying like he's cutting in and out the sound. I think he's muting and unmuting certain things, I would say. Otherwise, I wouldn't know why you would try something. Maybe you can elaborate in the chat what you meant by that. I saw the question coming, so I just laid it out there. Another one. Let me just go away from the headphones. But how do you translate sounds to a bigger sound system though? Because can you elaborate what the difference is? Because I see you got smaller speakers here, then you get to the 40,000 capacity stage. There is a difference there, obviously.
Yes, I mean, okay, but that's something what you could see really in what Eric showed, you know, when he introduces the sub, you know, underneath the kick. So that's something which on a big stage, you can't live without it, you know, because especially I'm playing almost 70% together with DJs, you know, which means they're playing finished tracks and which have, you know, great bass, great sub, you know, and everything well compressed, well mastered and everything. And you are playing, you know, a live set and you have to match that. There is, of course, a benefit in live modular because the dynamics and the sounds are much bigger than in a produced, you know, 16-bit wave or even a lot of DJs are today using MP3s. So that's the advantage of the, you know, modular. But from the other side, the sub, you know, the reverbs, the size, and that's something what's not so easy when you come and you play with big DJs, you know, and especially, you know, when you play with really, let's say, older DJs who are very experienced and who have not only that they have a great sound, but they actually prepare their tracks, you know, for live. So it's not only that they download something from Beatport and that's what they're playing. You know, they actually either get stamps or they take, you know, 24-bit tracks and then compress them, add some bass and everything. It happened to me a couple of times. I played, you know, after or before, you know, great DJs, and you know, when they started, their bass was, you know, mind blowing. I mean, so you know, even though it's not supposed to be a competition, you know, but people will hear the difference, you know. And again, you know, if you play in a smaller club, it's a completely, you know, let's say more friendly type of, you know, situation where you can get away with much more, and also you can experiment generally much more, you know, where when you play big commercial festivals, you have to understand that 70% of the people came there to have fun, to dance, you know, and they're not so artistic, you know, and they don't really care, you know, are you doing the music, you know, with a coffee grinder or you're playing, you know, a CD player or whatever.
I will elaborate on that great answer, and I can also then address something that Tough Chunks was asking. So with Learn to Play Live, what can we expect? It's a question that comes up in the chat. And Tomo was actually saying something really great. When I play with these big artists, he said a few things. First, I play with DJs that play finished tracks. Now, finished tracks means that they're all mixed and everything's been done on a computer and polished up and mastered sometimes. But another interesting thing is I play with a lot of older DJs and they do something with the sound. Now, if you're not familiar with what DJs are doing, let me explain it to you. DJs, most older DJs come from vinyl. That meant that all the different recordings sounded differently. The only thing that they had was the mixer, the 3-band DJ mixer, so they have to make sure that all the levels of all these different recordings sounded the same. Can you imagine what kind of a development goes into your brain if you constantly have to structure all these different sounds? Because obviously a great record with no low end, let's play something by New Order, 1982. I can tell you there's no low end on that record, as opposed to a big Tomo techno record playing with a big kick, for instance. So there's a difference there. Great DJs, or Tomo might agree, experienced DJs, they know this. They hear it and they can adapt that stuff to the sound system. Not only can they adapt it to the sound system, they can adapt it to the sound system from the wrong side, because they're not standing in front of the speakers, they're standing behind the speakers. So the push of the low-end frequency content makes them determine how stuff is actually going to work out. Now, this is something, lucky for me, that I have also experienced because I've been DJing like forever, and as has Tomo. So I can actually tell you this on how you can get to that, because it's not too hard. It's just something you need to figure and accept. So if you say like, what can we learn with Learn to Play Live? If I'm talking about a convincing live set, it means that your sound is actually going to sound like a brick wall. So that if you play with some DJs that have more experience, and you play with stuff that you can manipulate, we will actually make sure that you know how to interpret sound, which is why I'm asking Tomo these questions like, how does sound relate from a small room to a bigger room? I played my first DJ set, and it scared the living bejesus out of me. I was listening to all these records on my headphone, and I know now why Tomo says, I don't like headphones, because I listened to it on my headphone, and then I got to this sound system, of which, yes indeed, the monitor system was almost as big as most of the club sound systems we play in the smaller clubs, and the records scared the living daylights out of me. Now, this is something I got used to. It's something that I love, and it's something that I'm aiming for right now, actually. How much sound can I actually squeeze into the room? And I know Tomo, because Tomo and I have the same passion. We see a sound system, we want to just press it to the edge, you know? If the speakers are starting to smell, it means we're doing something with the speakers that's probably not been done before. So how do you introduce multiple sounds on a bigger sound system, Tomo? If you were playing, how do you do it? You build up your set and then more sounds come in. How would you actually, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I do two things, you know, regardless big or small stage. You know, I have a compressor limiter, you know, in my rack. So everything goes through that. And I have a preamp, you know, saturator, you know, with a low cut. So let's say I'm introducing some post-production elements in my live rack, so I can control certain things. One of them being, you know, cutting down anything underneath 35 hertz, because, you know, underneath is something that most of the clubs, the PAs cannot reproduce, but in the level it's taking away 30-40% actually of your loudness. Second thing also with the reverb, with modular, you know, certain modular elements are done very professionally. They're very good, you know, they're very leveled. I mean, the sounds are good and everything. Certain modules are much more experimental. They have DC clicks, you know, they have stuff which you don't hear, you know, which is 20 dBs peak over actually the sound. And that's with today's PAs and limiters with digital and everything, that triggers them off all the time. So you can actually play relatively low, but some, you know, module is doing a DC and basically pushing the PA system into red all the time. And the first thing the sound engineer will do, he will bring your volume down and keep it safe, you know, for his equipment. So there's, you know, so that's you know, part of that also choosing, you know, modules, you know, which are really for live and not so much for experimental and everything. Second thing is also layers, you know, I mean, techno is all about, of course, rhythm, but the other part is layers, you know. Some people in the modular world also do rumble, some of them don't do rumble, but regardless of that, depending again on the sound system, is how far you can go, you know, with the complexity of what you're playing. You know, sometimes it's really just much better having a kick, you know, and a 303 and nothing else. If the sound is really bad, it will sound powerful, it will be energetic, you know, and end of story. You know, because if you do, you know, a sub in a shitty, you know, club with a shitty sound, I mean, you're just making mush and nothing else. I mean, so those are kind of things which you really have to decide up front, and also knowing where you're playing. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, and that's also how I do my modular. You know, I have layers, which some of them I use, some of them I don't use, really depending, you know, where I play, and it's kind of a decision which is on the spot while I'm playing, you know, depending on how it sounds. I mean, you know, and so unfortunately, I think, you know, there are many maybe tricks, but on the end, nothing can replace experience. I mean, you know, experience and listening. You know, everybody would like to have some rules which they can follow and do those rules. But unfortunately, you know, music is, you know, without rules. I mean,
It is without
especially, you know, if you talk about modular. I mean.
Well, we're doing something at ADE, are we not? That's the plan.
Sorry?
We're doing something at ADE, are we not?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, stay tuned. Thank you. Applause for my friend Tomo. Okay, I'm really.
Thank you.
Thanks, my friend. Okay. Yeah, very interesting. ADE, Tomo and I, myself, we are cooking up something of which we are not going to say what it is right now. So thank you very much. I see in the chat that Sepo, I didn't mean to dish you, my friend. I was just giving different insights. So keep coming. Keep them coming. Now, we are getting to the point that we are now flying within our DeLorean into Weidenes in Holland. And we're in this lovely environment at Avontuur Blanchère, which is a venue. It's one of our LearnToPlay.Live classrooms, actually. And we're here. And I am actually going to show you a few things on my system. I'm very scared now with all the talent. No, I'm just gonna go into a certain routine and show you by my setup on how I actually interpret certain things. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm not even sure. I'm going to just up the faders, and I'll come back and I'll explain what is what. All right, so I suggest you turn up your volume, and let's get it. Okay. Well, this is, worked out well. Sometimes it goes wrong, but nothing went wrong today, so it's okay. This is pretty much what I think is doing everything that everybody was talking about. I've kind of got a hodgepodge of all these different things all set up together. Shall we go over what I'm actually doing? Let's first explain what I've got on my desk. There's a modular synthesizer here. That is just doing the drums, basically. Now, let's first go into that kick drum. Let's first start there, okay? You heard everybody talking about it now. This thing does a few things. Now, at LearnToPlay.Live, I think it's to do with interpretation of sound, right? So, kick drums, to me, are very important because they do three things: tone, length, and impact. Basically, Tomo was already talking about that same thing. So if I've got my kick and I want to build it up, I'll start with a very short, concise kick drum. This is what Eric was talking about. He starts with something that indicates the groove but doesn't really punch you in the chin yet. We know you came on the dance floor to get kicked in the butt. You'll get there, but first we will start like CIA. The better we do our job, the less you're going to find out about it. Now, obviously, during the course of the track, we'd like to build stuff up a little bit. Now, I have got certain things I can play live, things that are programmed already that give me a little bit of predictability, or at least something that I can fall back on, and stuff that, like what Tomo was saying, would go wrong if you interpret it in the wrong sense. Now, the kick drum. Starts from Sky Radio up all the way to, okay, throwing gasoline in the fireplace, obviously. And then there's a small knob that gets it from smooth Tulum kind of vibes to Rotterdam Parkzicht kind of vibes. That sounds like this. You don't have to do it like that, but it's nice to have that option. So there's a wide range. Now, again, I was talking about simplicity in the beginning. At LearnToPlay.Live, I will tell you, keep it simple. If you can keep it simple, that would be the first step to do. If you hear something and it doesn't work, 9 out of 10 times it is somebody overcomplicates stuff. We didn't overcomplicate stuff when we started out because there was just not enough equipment to overcomplicate stuff. Like what Deborah was saying in the chat, Jeff Mills, one drum computer, so many sounds, and that's what it was. The fun part, though, you saw it also earlier with David, with Honeysmack. These synthesizers have a certain appeal, they have a certain sound, but out of these one synthesizer, you can give 10 DJs the same synthesizer or drum computer, they will come up with different stuff. So at LearnToPlay.Live, we will look at your signature. What is it that you like? You got your own vibe, your own thing. You don't have to be afraid. Or as a matter of fact, if you are, it's not a problem. Harness that fear and we'll just turn it into something that is there. Because like Tomo was saying just now, he feels a little bit of anxiety when he plays, but he uses that anxiety to stay sharp. If something goes wrong, then that is actually how you're going to look at it. I think it's nerve-wracking as well. You see all these wires, and I know looking at this desk, it looks overwhelming. Then again, same thing as what David says earlier, you don't have to have all this gear. I love options, and I've been in this game long enough that I know how to interpret these options. But, you know, if you can keep it simple, try to keep it simple. Out of this modular, there's only 5 drum sounds that are playing, as a matter of fact. I will play you something that I didn't play you before. This is the Percon's voice and the kick drum. Listen to this groove. So I'm turning stuff off. And do you hear how you can get from a nice housey, bouncy groove? I'll do it again. First, I'll play you that housey, bouncy groove, and the impact of the sounds changes the shape of the music, or changes even the genre. So this is how I look at this modular synthesizer. I love the flexibility because changing the sounds will change the genre. This, in my opinion, is house music. A classic house pattern, 4 to the floor, hats on the afterbeat. Now we're going to change it into progressive house. Listen to this. So same pattern, different approach. It's longer kick, and that shape within the frequency range changes the whole vibe of what it is that you're doing. Okay, when I play short notes over the top, let's try that. That's house. If I want to make it progressive house, it needs to be a little bit more trancy. So what I will do is I'll change, again, the shape of the kick, shape of the sounds. I'm rushing into it. Usually I'll take my time, a little bit longer, but you catch my idea. Now, these things are built around training your brain to listen to different frequencies and adapting those frequencies into a different kind of way of interpreting sound. Not so much, I'm a techno DJ, I want to make techno. I mean, I've been in this game for such a long time. At some point I thought I was a techno DJ, and then I was a progressive DJ, and then I played house, and I just don't really want to pigeonhole any style anymore. If I can make it, if I can play it, if I can hear it in my head, I'd like to produce it. And that's the sheer freedom that I love. That's really what I love with this whole live thing. When I DJ, I bring my USB, but the set's always going to be the same thing that it was. And that's what I would like to, shape it differently. Are there any questions for me? I see that Deborah says, I saw an interview once with Blawan, and the one thing I never forgot is that he said that you get the best sound with your gear if you have less gear. It triggers your creativity the most. That is true. But I think that everybody who's played anything tonight with the amount of gear that they had in front of them has also paced themselves that they didn't really go overboard. The fact that you have all these different pieces of equipment, it doesn't mean that you have to use them. Look at it as you're in the kitchen, you've got all these different spices, but for certain dishes, you're only using a few, because just having all those different flavors doesn't mean you have to use them all at once. And that's something that you need to really listen for. And that's what I see a lot of people make mistakes for. They have a new flavor, it needs to go into the recipe. Oh, not a flavor, it needs to go into the recipe. Well, yeah, but at some point you should understand that people don't really like it when it doesn't taste well, just because you've been adding all that stuff into it. So at Learn to Play Live, 32 weeks, I and the teachers will teach you on what recipe goes where and how to apply it. And less is more. You need to pace yourself. It's weird. The biggest lesson that I've learned through the course of my career is that it's all to do with having patience and really getting into the flow and taking time to also get used to an idea that you're doing. Eric played for 3 hours. I know when he plays his sets, he really paces himself. He suggests something and throws it into the room and then see how it works and then come back and then, you build that stuff up. It's a conversation you're trying to have with the sound system, with the people on the floor. That's absolutely how I would see it. I guess that concludes our broadcast day, though, doesn't it? If there are not any questions, I hope that this has been very, very, very interesting for you guys. Let's see, I got something that I had on my presentation still that I wanted to show you towards the end, which is here. Yes. So let's see if we can get on stream. Yeah, this was my first live event, live thing. It was really cool. I had our instructors. Now, like what I said, what I hope you'll take away from today's webinar is that preparing song ingredients, writing simple drum sequences, how you can transition, how to create a song structure, how to deal with different sound systems, keeping oversights on groove, that was the little jam that I was doing, keeping oversight on levels. Everyone that played a demo tonight is really, really, really saying like, okay, you know what, I'm keeping stuff in check, I'm keeping stuff here. If that didn't convince you, I don't know what else will. I'd like you to come in to LearnToPlay.Live, and we are waiting for you. We're going to start in September, which means I'm thinking of doing a few weeks of introductory master classes with your teachers, and then in October we're going to go full-fledged into this curriculum. I really, really, really enjoy everybody that's been in the chat tonight. Thanks ever so much. Yeah, I'll catch you on another video. My name's Analog Kitchen, and I'm out. Peace.